environmental justice concept is one that touches a lot of areas. And so in my presentation, I'll try to give you the contextual nature of what's happening in areas where I'm working in other parts of the country, and the fact, as Senator De Leon said, that the world is watching California, and the rest of us who don't live in California, we are hoping California be the real California. Do the things that are progressive, that oftentimes move eastward. And so when we talk about issues around climate, around energy, around food security, around issues of transportation, these are things that we would love to see California move forward warp speed. I'm a sociologist by training, and I'm an environmental sociologist, and I'm really proud to say that I am an environmentalist. And over the last 3 decades plus, I have tried to connect dots. Environmental justice principle is basically a principle borrowed from civil rights. Every community and every resident who lives in this country has a right to equal protection of environmental laws, housing, transportation, civil rights, health, etc. And so when we talk about basic human rights, that's all environmental justice is. The right to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and have your food that's safe, and have your kids play outside, and they're not playing on a site that's a park that's built on top of an old dump. Or not have your schools built next to freeways, petrochemical plants, refineries, lead smelters, dog food manufacturing plants, etc. So when we talk about this environmental justice, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. And most of the issues that we deal with in terms of permitting or citing, the only science, it's not epidemiology, it's not toxicology, it's not hydrology, it's mostly political science and sociology. Who gets what, when, where, and why? That's what we're talking about. So we talk about the environmental justice movement. The birth of the movement was in the southern United States, 1982, Warren County, the national movement. We know that we're isolated struggles going on all across this country, in California, Mississippi, New York. But again, the Warren County scenario, the case in Warren County galvanized a movement, people coming together, civil rights, faith-based, political leaders, blacks, whites, Native Americans in Warren County, and said no dumping of toxic waste in my community. They line their streets. These are young people. These are high school students lining the street, stopping or trying to stop these trucks filled with toxins. And so when we talk about the issue of environmental justice and the legacy of Jim Crow, environmental justice, this Dumping in Dixie book deals with the South, but we know we have Southern California. We have South LA now. When I was here, it was called South Central. So when we talk about this whole question of who gets more pollution, in 19 states in this country, African Americans are more likely to live in polluted environments than whites. That's true in 12 states for Latinos and 7 states for Asians. So when we talk about those states, we know the states that we're talking about. California, you got some issues when it comes to distribution of things that other people don't want and things that people want that don't have. So when we talk about pollution and we talk about parks, we talk about food deserts, and we talk about the good stuff, how it's distributed, and how the other stuff is distributed. And we talk about a very scientific process of tracking, of finding out who gets what, when, and where, and why. And there's a process that I call follow the money. Follow the dollars. You follow the dollars, you can tell who's important, who's not. And a lot of times decisions get made based on political power and expediency and who's not in the room. And so what the environmental justice movement has been trying to do over the last 30 plus years is to color coordinate the money and the decision making so that we don't have this monochromatic process going forward and people asking, well, who's in the room? Who made that decision? So we have to be better about democratizing the democratic process. And so when we look at the principles of environmental justice, the first principle that we developed in 1991 at that summit, we planned it for 500 people, 1,000 folks showed up. That's a good problem to have. First principle is that people most impacted must speak for themselves and must be in the room and have the information in a time-sensitive, user-friendly way to make informed decisions. People are intelligent. They have indigenous knowledge that scientists and experts and technocrats can use. Listen to them and take their advice. Listen to them and take that advice. And so when we talk about that summit, anytime you got 1,000 people in Washington, D.C. in 1991, you have to have a march. You have to be on the Capitol. And so when we talk about in 91, even though the struggles had crystallized and collectives had come together from small communities, bottom up, EPA did not invent environmental justice. AQMD and none of these DWP, none of these government agencies invented it. It came out of struggle of communities most impacted. And we are pleased to have our agencies begin to embrace. I didn't say embrace, begin to embrace. We are last year in 2014, we commemorated the 20th anniversary of the executive order, 20 years. And there's some things that have been accomplished, and there's some things that we're still working on. When we got the President of the United States, President Clinton, to sign the executive order 12898 in February, it was cold and snowy. Some of us got a call. We were at a conference. We got a call, and they called, a few of us said, come to the White House from your conference. We were in Arlington, Virginia, and the president wants to have a meeting. I thought it was a crank call. Who's calling you, come to the White House? Well, we went. Well, that's the signing of the executive order in the Oval Office, and President Clinton at that desk. Nice office. Take the long view, prepare for the tipping effect. If we support and build up, we will have experts coming out of all of these communities that are disproportionately, adversely impacted. And I think the fact that in order for us to build a healthy and resilient communities, we have to talk about addressing these legacy issues, things that have festered over the decades, and we have not resolved them because dealing with race issues or dealing with equity and justice issues are very difficult, and you get so much pushback when you say, well, this deals with this particular community, and this has been the history for all of these years. How are we going to change that? And we have to look at this as a national security issue. Climate justice and addressing these equity issues, we are talking about the future of our nation and the fact that if we are going to be competitive, we have to invest. And we have to invest in the communities that we have said are vulnerable. And finally, I think I'm an optimist. You know, I am not a sprinter. I am a marathon runner. And this calls for more than just a marathon. I say this race for climate justice, environmental justice, health equity, dealing with these issues of fairness, justice, and equity, it's a marathon relay. You run your 26 miles and then you pass it off to the next. We are training the next generation of students and leaders, and I think we have to be mindful of the fact that this is not just something that we can volunteer to do. This is something that we have to do. Thank you very much.